welcome to another war game review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at a brand new... This is new, right?
6 months ago.
6 months ago?
Yeah.
A 6 months old war game.
We're shooting this in January of 2020. That game came out like in...
Okay. I just got a shipment from Worthington,
July.
that's why.
Yeah.
They've released a lot of games recently.
They have. And a lot of very interesting games, too.
So, this is Antietam, September...
Antietam.
Antietam.
You can call it Antietam because you can say aluminium, and I have to say aluminum.
I just pronounce all the letters and the words and hope for the best.
Antietam.
Antietam, okay. So,
named after Antietam Creek. Fought near the village of Sharpsburg.
Okay. Is this the Battle of Sharpsburg?
It is. The Confederates called it the Battle of Sharpsburg.
Ah, okay.
So remember that Command Post Games review I did from a couple of years ago?
Yes.
Where I played Sharpsburg from...
That was this same battle.
This battle. And that battle really focused on the Sunken Road as well.
The two different naming conventions always trips me up.
Very
I feel like
weird.
I've got to learn twice as much history at times.
And I don't understand it. I'm not a historian. I don't understand the concept.
I know it's like one side called them...
The Union used like a...
The town or something.
No, the Union did like a landmark of some kind, and the Confederates typically called it the town.
Okay.
Just very weird. I don't know.
This is Antietam, so therefore it is a Union slanted game.
Yes. It was a Union victory overall, so it's... And tonight, it was a Union victory.
Indeed it was. So it's September 17th, 1862.
Yep.
This is obviously an American Civil War game. This is a hex and counter game, and it's published by Worthington. Now, Civil War, American Civil War, not really my forte. I don't know a lot about it, relatively speaking, compared to a lot of people who can watch this video.
Right.
So these are always interesting learning games for me. I learned some new history, and this is a very beloved topic by a lot of different people.
Yes.
Now, this particular game is much more on the introductory or the simpler side of things.
Without a doubt. A lot of the mechanisms are abstracted into a whole. Very well, I think, but you don't have a lot of crunchy details. It's kind of abstracted or amalgamated into a playable format.
What it means is this is a very easy game to learn.
Yes.
I think the rulebook is 8 pages.
8 pages. I read it this afternoon.
Yeah.
And you know how bad I am at rules.
It's hard to mess up how
very
few
hard.
rules there are.
Yeah. There's the rulebook.
Yeah.
Right there.
Makes it very easy.
The rules pamphlet.
Yeah. At best, a pamphlet.
Yeah.
Which is great. Because a lot of Civil War games, very crunchy, very detailed.
Yeah. Because
there's so much kind of love and historicity they want to pour into these games. This is a much more approachable game to someone who maybe hasn't played a war game before.
I would agree with that. And one other comment we made while we were talking about this reminded us of At Any Cost from GMT Games.
Which is a much more complex game.
Right, which is the Franco-Prussian War.
Yes.
And it has all kinds of different elements and modifiers, but it uses this game uses some of the same systems. Not chit pull, but it uses some of the same defensive fire and movement factors and movement elements.
And that's something we kind of talked about. The game might not be revolutionary in any of the things. It doesn't make there's nothing new in here particularly, but it uses it's got clever use of some very well done systems.
Yeah.
I move up my guys, you do defensive fire, and then with whatever I've got left, I do my offensive fire, for example.
Which makes you think about your attacks a lot differently than if you don't have that element.
Yes.
And that's a condition of the time and the style of fighting.
Yes.
You moved in formations, everybody stayed in a nice tidy line, kind of that Napoleonic feel.
Right, and if you didn't, you'd get surrounded.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing here, is if a hex is attacked by 3 or more other hexes
you get
adjacent.
+1.
Yeah, you're being surrounded, there's flanking fire, it's easy for them to attack you.
Yep.
And so, again, it's a lot of familiar things if you've played any war games or things which make a lot of sense, very intuitive. But it's a very simple game to learn.
Yes.
And as you would expect from a Civil War game, this game is about attrition. All that defensive fire, then the offensive fire, then you switch sides, and I get to do defensive fire, and you get offensive fire.
Right.
Almost, back and forth, so you kind of get... I get to fire twice, and then you get to fire twice.
Yeah.
Both offensively and defensively as the turns go on. As such, you take a lot of strength point losses in this one. and that's how the game is won or lost typically, is there's the casualty track that goes up to 399
for the full campaign game.
To give you an indication of
how many losses you're
going to be taking and tracking over the course of the game.
Yeah, most of my Union units were anywhere from 12 to 21 strength.
Yes.
Yours were somewhere between 6 and, what was your highest one, like 15?
I think 12?
16, 12?
I may have had a 14 at one point, maybe.
So, I mean...
Mine were weaker, typically.
Weaker. But there's a lot of strength points there. And the interesting thing is, you mentioned attritional style. If you study this combat results table, there's not a lot of big losses on this.
Yes.
It's mostly 1s, occasionally a 2, which requires a pretty good die roll typically, and there's not a lot of modifiers.
No.
There's not a lot of bonuses other than attacking from 3 adjacent hexes gives you a +1. There are a lot of defensive down modifiers, like the Sunken Road was a -3, but your goal here is to try to get to the right side of this CRT where you're going to do, 3 and 4 losses plus a retreat. That's huge.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that element of it. I felt like it was not crunchiness, but it was simply trying to look at how I should be attacking for the results that I was looking for. Many a time, knowing I wanted to get you out of that Sunken Road, because that's a victory point hex, I'm like, okay, I want to do this one, because it gives me an opportunity to make you break.
This weaker strength point attack with better modifiers is better than a lot of strength points with worse
a -3,
modifiers.
yeah.
And there was most of the game isn't like that. A lot of the board is open
maneuver,
but there are parts of it, key parts like the Sunken Road,
and some of these woods
in Sharpsburg where you've got line of sight blocking and stuff. Making good attacks and clever attacks and being smart about where you do it and who attacks where and what.
Yeah.
Because every unit can only attack once, and every unit can only be attacked once.
That's a key element of this design.
So you're like, okay, well, if this guy attacks him, this is the best possible outcome. But these two guys are going to sit here and do nothing because there's no one else they can attack, for example.
Posey and Rhodes, or Posey and Pryor, your guys sitting in the middle.
Gosh.
I don't know that they attacked more than once.
Posey maybe
have done 1 or 2. But I liked that because that gave me the feeling of an overall commander trying to guide my troops to do what we needed done. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. And I thought I wouldn't at first. I remember that first round going, this is a little... It felt very much like I'm looking for 1 extra strength point just to make...
to get onto another
to get to the next column. I didn't feel that. I was really looking at the results. It gave me a very good in-command feeling.
And I'll be honest, it is rare, for me at least, I don't know about you, it's rare for me to look at a CRT in the way that I did today.
Agreed.
Where I'm like, oh, this worst column is actually a better attack than this one.
For what I'm trying to do.
I'll be honest, most of the time I don't care.
I want to do the most damage I can.
Because most of the time it doesn't matter that much. You want to get to the best column possible.
Yeah.
Because usually if you're on a good column, you don't have all these negatives to the roll on the column. So I felt like there was a really neat interplay with how I was studying that and what was playing out tactically on the board, like you said. And that's really cool for a game this simple, that there was actually some stuff to really think about in this one too.
Well, I think overall, and this was designed by Grant and Mike Wiley, the owners of Worthington, I think overall I think they had a clear design objective. I think they were trying to replicate some of the more interesting elements of the Civil War in a very introductory level and easy to play game. And I think they knocked it out of the park.
Yes, as far as
in that respect.
Absolutely. As far as their design goals go, they absolutely met or exceeded those goals. This is a game, it says on the back of the box, it says victory within 3 to 6 hours. And 3 hours for the small scenarios, 6 hours for the
campaign, And we thought that was pretty spot on.
If not a slight overstatement.
Right.
We played the shortest scenario that was less than 3 hours.
Yeah, we played 4 turns and setup and rules reading in about 2.5 hours.
And the longest possible game you can play is 14 turns.
Yeah.
So
3 times that would have been 7 hours.
Yeah, which... and some of those are night turns where I don't think you do much.
Right.
Particularly.
Well, that's the other interesting thing.
Oh, yeah.
This is a series.
This is the
right. So it's called the Brigade Civil War Brigade Battle Series. This is the first game.
Yes.
So they have series rules like those night turns you mentioned aren't used in this campaign.
Yeah, there's nighttime rules. There's like creating breastworks.
It's called the organization phase. Yeah. Isn't that what that part was called?
You can burn down bridges, railroads.
And you can search for fords.
Yeah, where are we going to cross the river? So there's a bunch of extra stuff that some of the rules are included in here.
Yes.
You just don't use them in this.
Yeah, because I was reading, when I read the rules, I read that and I'm like, I don't see any of those counters here. They reference like question marks for the fords. And I'm like, maybe I didn't get a full game.
No.
But then it says, literally in the playbook, you will not use those 4 rules, which are for other entries in the series.
For the next ones in the series. So there'll be little bits more added, which are obviously going to add more tactical stuff to it. But
right.
It's nice to play a kind of a very pure and clean game where it's just like, line up your guys and make sure you keep your battle line integrity and try and break the other guy's line and do as much attritional damage as possible while not taking as much as you can.
And that's another interesting element. Because that was our scoring condition, I was more concerned about, plink and plunk and, I just wanted to make sure and hit you and get some strength point reductions.
Yes.
It did weaken your attacks, but it also, particularly near the end of the game, I was kind of looking for 3 or 4 points to make it so you really had to do something special to win.
Yes.
So that was interesting as well, maybe a little ahistorical in that respect, but that was this scenario, which really focused on the sunken road.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I guess I like games that have good attrition in them.
Because it feels right.
Without bogging down.
Yeah.
This uses these strength point counters, which can get a little bit fiddly at times when there's a lot of counters. There's one counter per stack.
Yeah, you can't have 2. Nice. You can have a leader stacked with a combat unit, but you can't have 2 combat units.
But your stacks aren't huge. But sometimes you have to look at each one of those, and so there's a little bit of managing your little counters and things like that.
Well, and the rules show you put that lost stack underneath them.
But then it starts to go over there.
Yeah, and it becomes a little sloppy. So that was an element I wish maybe we could have done differently. Maybe made them smaller, but...
Or use I
don't know how to solve that.
No, but I didn't hate it. It was just that's something that you're going to come up against in this game. But what I enjoy is a game that has attrition in it, and it means something.
Right.
In this one, it's literal victory points.
Well, and once again, going back to that CRT.
Yes.
There were times I was looking at your units going, you're going to be firing on this column. If I can just do one more wound, all of a sudden you're firing on this really bad column or worse column. So I like that because I was kind of looking, maybe that's ahistorical as well, but I did enjoy that.
But I think back to other games we've played where attrition played a big part in it. Things like Fields of Despair, Metz 1870, even Battle Hymn.
Yeah,
those, attrition is in that game in a very different way. Right here, it's every strength point you lose is a victory point. Opponent. And so, it makes you really, really consider like, do I rush these guys up? What am I doing? Is 2 points of this victory hex worth me losing 2 or 3 to
which is 3 or 4 points
to strength points getting there?
And those are good questions, and I think those are questions commanders have to ask themselves. Obviously, not with a victory point or a score, but do I want to lose 3 or 4 guys taking a piece of hill that doesn't really matter?
You can't be a crazy person and just charge everyone forward. It's not going to go well for you.
And I thought we did a good job of that. I probably did a very over-aggressive move, which, surprise, surprise, that's what I do. I moved my artillery like right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because the artillery rules are pretty interesting.
Yes.
They double their strength if they're 1 hex away, so it's grape shot. And if they're 2 to 5 hexes away, they're just normal strength. So I was like, I want to run that up there and turn that 8 into a 16. And it worked for me a couple of times. You ended up eliminating it. But I'd rather have you eliminate an 8 power unit, which gave you 8 victory points, versus a 15. So that was interesting. I thought those rules were fairly well done. The best part of the design, I thought, though, was the defensive fire then offensive fire, and then you flip it, and then I got defensive fire before your offensive. I thought that was very cool, and you've already mentioned that.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll show you the board and how some of it works, and we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts so you can kind of see it. So here's a look at the board. Just for reference sake, these hexes, I think they're 1-inch hexes, so they're actually a really good size to them. And these are the larger counters. I don't know Imperial all that well, but these might be 5/8 inches. They might be a little bit bigger. But the counters are really nice. They're very clear. The grey ones are obviously CSA, and the blue ones are Union. And you'll notice at the top, they have these different coloured stripes for the different brigades. So we have French, Morris, Kimball, all in the same formation. Oh, and Weber. Then we've got Caldwell, and I almost said Colquitt, but that's not true. Then we've got Richardson and Brooke, and under here we have Meagher. So it's Richardson. You can see here he's a leader, a little leader on a horse, and he's got this little star instead of a number for combat. He's their leader. So each of them has a 4-hex command radius. At the beginning of your turn, first thing you do is to check to make sure everyone with a matching color is in command. This guy was out of command because he's more than 4 hexes away. You can see he's all the way up here. Oh, he's got 1 out of command and he's routed. He doesn't have 2 out of commands. Now, the only thing in this one is I played as the CSA, and I kept thinking Colquitt was part of this Union formation, and I kept wanting to attack my own guy. And that's because the top border color is the same. And when I play games with the formations, all I look at is these. Oh look, these are the green ones, these are the brown ones, and I kept getting him confused. So just make sure that you're careful with doing that. I would have liked to have seen it at maybe entirely separate, different colors. This is a little bit too close for me. Even though this is a grey background and this is blue, and it should be very obvious, my first instinct is to look at the banner. But that's just, again, that's the world's smallest nitpick. So, game-wise, first thing you do is you have a command phase. Who's in command, who's out of command? Well, this guy's out of command, so he can't really do much. He can't move or anything like that. He can defend himself, but there's no one to defend himself against. What we're going to do then is, in the series, because this is a series game, you would then have, it is called let me just check, an organization phase, something that's not in this game. Organization is when you dig breastworks, you might burn down bridges, or railroads, you might try to find places on the river to ford if they're hidden. Again, in this game, they don't have that. That's just not there, so you just skip over that. What you then do is you do your offensive artillery fire. Now, the Union player doesn't have any offensive artillery fire to be done because their only artillery piece up here is routed, so they're currently running away and they're out of command anyway. So if you had artillery, you would fire it if you wanted to. What you then do is you would then do any moves that you want to do. Now, because of where we are in this game, these guys are kind of locked in combat. You can move. Everyone's got a zone of control. You can move out of a zone of control, but you cannot move back into the same unit's zone of control. So you can't even move along like this. You can leave and try and do something else if you've got enough movement, but you can't just kind of skip over here to do a better attack. It's just, you're stuck in combat. It's too sticky, okay? So the only real move we have to do is maybe bringing this guy into this hex here. And then you move into the combat phase. If you had reinforcements, they would move in the movement phase. They just kind of come on the board. So during the combat phase, I've got all my guys kind of lined up here. I just moved them up. Well, I'm going to take a volley of defensive fire before I can do any of my attacks. So this is where the CSA player starts licking their chops, and they start looking at their strength point values. So the strength point value is just printed on the counter. So this guy originally has a 12, but they all have these moving strength point markers, and currently he is a 9. Okay, whatever's shown at the top. So, and the rulebook says you kind of just shows you like, oh, you're supposed to lay it on like this. Gets a bit messy when there's a whole bunch, so you just kind of got to remember that. So he's a 9. Now, if we take a look at the CRT here, 9 is going to put us on the 9 through 12 column. And you would roll a d10, add any modifiers you may or may not have, and that's how many strength points you're going to, or strength point losses you're going to inflict on the opponent. Real simple. What you might consider doing though, so this guy is on the sunken road. So if I attack the sunken road from over here, he's got a -3 defensive modifier. Well, I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to attack with these guys. I'm just going to attack with this guy because he's shooting down the gully. They don't have the defensive bonus. So he's going to roll on that 9 through 12 table. So he's going to roll on this chart here. And we're just going to do a straight die roll. No modifiers for terrain or anything like that. I rolled a 6. So we go on the 9 through 12 and we consult the 6. And that gives us 1 strength point loss. So right here, Morris is a 17. He's going to go down to a 16. Well, on either side of that, it's not there. So I fish out from my huge stack of counters a 16. So this is what we talked about, where it can be a little bit fiddly with moving things around, especially if you're trying to move these guys in the middle. A pair of tweezers might come in handy. So that was him. These two guys were thinking about attacking him. Each unit can only be attacked once. So Pryor, in this instance, feeling kind of useless. He literally cannot attack him as against the rules, and so he therefore cannot attack anyone because there's no one else chasing him, so he's not going to do anything. We're thinking about Sumner, and we got Posey and Colquitt could combine to attack, but again we've got this -3 modifier if we do that. But Colquitt's in not great shape. He's only a 7. Maybe we should attack this guy. We'll just roll a 7 on Weber and Sumner here. Why not? It'll be funny. We might get lucky. Who knows? So we're going to roll on the 5 through 8 table. No modifiers, because we're just shooting him next door. Down the gully. He doesn't have any defense. And we rolled a 4. So on our 5 through 7 table, a 4 is a big fat miss. Not what you want to see. And there's a lot of that if you roll poorly. So that was Colquitt. Again, Posey now not really going to do anything because he can't attack anyone that hasn't already been attacked. We're going to probably sit here. Oof, we might do the same thing with Parham. Oh, Parham's terrible. He's only a 5. So we're going to combine fire. Oh, 9. That's bad. And this is what we talked about. So do I sit here and attack him with a 5? If I attack with a 5 with no modifiers, I'm going to do something with a 5 or less. If I attack with a 9 with a -3, I have to do at least a 6. Oh, a 6 is a miss. Jeez, I have to do a 7 or less to do anything. A 7 or more to do anything. So that's where you're like, sometimes combining your strength points isn't better if you get worse modifiers on your dice roll. So I'm just going to attack with Parham. We're going to take that crap shot on a 5. Oh, amazing. And we rolled a 10. Best possible outcome. So we rolled a 10, which is 2 losses. That's excellent. Wish we could have done that in the game. So he was a 9. He's going to go down to an 8. And then down to a 7. And what's significant about that, other than I get 2 victory points for having done that, is he was going to attack me on this table. Now he's going to attack me on this one, on this column. So his odds got worse attacking me. And that's the nature of this game. I run my guys up offensively, I take a lot of defensive fire, and then that huge attack I was going to do is now worse, objectively worse. So it's really neat trying to figuring out all this stuff. And then we've got this guy right here. He's a 6. We'll do 6 and a 10. And artillery fire 2 to 5 hexes away there times 1. So we're going to do 16 on this guy right here. 16 on that guy right there. So the 16 column. Oh, we rolled a 2. 2 is fairly pathetic. So we look at the 16 table. A 2 is a miss. Not what you want to see. That's basically all of our defensive fire that we're going to do. So CSA's done for a little bit. The Union player then does their offensive fire. So they're going to then attack with this guy, and 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 this guy. And it's the same thing. They're just going to combine your units. So we're going to do a 17 plus a 16. 17 and a 16 puts us on the 33 plus table. So we're going to use these two guys to attack D.H. Hill. And he's out in the open, so he's got no defensive modifiers. So we're just going to roll on this insane table over here. Okay? And we rolled the best possible outcome, which is a 9. A 10's obviously better, but in this instance it doesn't make a difference. So they're going to take 4 losses, and they're going to retreat, and they're going to have to make a morale check. So they're going to take 4 losses. So I went from a 9 immediately down to a 5, which is absolutely brutal. Then you have to move back 2 spaces, and you have to go towards your entry hex, which for us was 3, 2, 1, 2. So we're going to go 1, and you can't stop here, so you got to go back 1 more space. And then when we're here, we're going to make a route check. Now, the routing, your morale value, is either green, black, or gold. You can see here, he's got a black number, he's got a green number, he's got a gold number. The number is your strength points, but the color of the number is what level of your morale is. We're black, so we need a 7 or less to pass our check. We did not pass our check, so we are going to gain a routed marker. So the routed marker goes on us. And that means he basically can't move until he stops routing. He can't do a whole lot there. At the end of the turn, he's going to get a chance to rally. When you rout, you move back another 3 spaces, but we are at our entry hex point. There's nowhere else to go in this particular little scenario. So, with that, that's one attack. Some of the attacks are very powerful when you've got good numbers, some of them very weak when you don't. So picking and choosing your battles and skirmishes is very important. Now, the other thing to consider is these leaders. If I have a leader with me, they give me a -1 to my morale check. So if I'd have rolled an 8, it would be subtracted by 1 to a 7. I would have passed that check. The other thing is if I had been if your leader is with a stack that gets attacked, and if I attack and I roll a 10 or a modified 10, then I have to make a leader casualty check. And on a 7 or more, my leader's dead. Now, he doesn't die, he dies, but he just gets replaced with a slightly worse leader. It says replacement Jackson. Basically, his command radius goes from 4 to 3, so he's not as effective a commander. It doesn't come up that often, especially if you keep your generals or your leaders back from the front lines to help rally routing troops and kind of funnel them back in, which I think is probably a good way to use them rather than sitting them on the front lines to pass that initial morale check. I think that's maybe not as effective, but you got to keep them close to the lines because they have that command range. But that's what this game is. It's this back and forth. So now having, they do a couple more attacks, and then the Union would do a rally phase, And then what's going to happen is it goes to the CSA's turn. They're going to do a command check, see who's in or out of command. They're then going to do any offensive fire with their cannons that they may or may not want to do. Let's say this guy just wants to attack him with a 10. Nice and simple. We rolled an 8. That's really good. So we're going to do an extra casualty here just for fun. That goes from a 13 down to a 12. And he gets a fired marker because he is fired for the turn. Then they would do any moves they want to do, which might be bringing this guy back into the fight. He might go 1, 2, 3. This guy might come back 1, 2. And then from there, we do defensive fire. So the Union players then going to do a round of defensive fire, and then the CSA is going to do a round of offensive fire. And then I'm going to rally my guys where I make checks on my routed guys. My fired markers come off, and then you go again. It's then the Union turn. And each time you do a loss on these strength points, not only do you weaken them, but you also get a victory point. So the victory point track just over off the side of the board goes up to like 399, and you can see why. Some of these guys start with 18 or 21, and over the course of 14 turns, some of them are going to get eliminated. And it's not like, oh, that's 1 victory point. That's like 21 victory points if you can kill this guy. You've gained them slowly over time, but that mimicking of attrition, it's really fun to see over the course of the game. You're already strong units at the beginning. Halfway through the game, you're like, man, these guys are not in good shape. And you feel it, and you're like, gosh, what can I do to like support them or to move them somewhere, maybe off the front lines and replace them with someone else? What do I do? Is the morale value that good? Because this guy's got 21 points, but he's only a green morale, so he's going to break more easily than, for example, this guy, who's only got 9 strength points, but he's gold, so he breaks on a 10 only. Which means basically never. So he's never going to break, but he's going to die quicker. This guy's going to break all the time, but he's going to die a lot slower. And so some of the asymmetry in how this all happens makes the game very, very interesting. And there's just a lot to think about. So what we'll do is we'll just wrap up here with a few final thoughts. So that was a look at the board. The other thing that we hadn't talked about before that I enjoyed, because it made you, again, makes you think, makes you got to make some good tactical choices, is the timing of your artillery fire.
Yes.
You know, if you're doing offensive fire with your cannons, you basically shoot your cannons, then you move your troops up. Mm-hmm. And then, at the end of your turn, you get to rally them. That's great. They can fire again.
Yep.
The problem is if you use them for defensive fire, well, defensive fire happens on your turn, so I'm going to shoot my cannons defensively, great. But then, when it comes to my turn,
you don't get to use them.
I can't use them offensively.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice as well.
So then I've got to wait till the whole round of my turn. Then I can use them defensively again.
And the interesting thing that I found about that is the thing you're concerned about. There were times that I was like, I'm okay with that. Because of their rules for doubling and adjacent hexes.
Yes.
I was totally okay if you wanted to move up on me. I'll then do defensive fire, because guess what? I turned my 6 all of a sudden into a 12, and that was better for me. So it was something to worry about, but it also was interesting that it ended up working out for me.
Yes.
A couple of times. So it was, you had to make a call.
Yes.
And I like that.
It's when do you use those, when do you not? Because then, if you use them defensively, you might get that doubled attack, but then they can't do anything, and they're going to take defensive fire again from my troops already sat on them. There's some really neat interplay with those.
It's a good tactical choice. It's a choice that I have to make, and I think that's very cool.
And that's the thing that I would say about this game. For it being an 8-page rulebook,
there's some depth.
There was like one thing that was slightly vague that I would have liked to have had clarified.
Was that the routing rule?
The routing and the retreating.
Yeah.
Where it's like you have to route towards your entry hex,
or a division or a
if there's no entry hex available.
Right.
So like, at what point do you stop routing there?
Yeah.
Just
could have used some clarity.
A little bit more specificity there, and then I think there was I think there's an error on the play aid chart with the artillery fire.
There is.
Where it says, if you're 1 hex away, your artillery fires ×2. If you're 2 to 5 hexes away, it's ×1. And then underneath it says, artillery fires at infantry or dismounted cavalry at half strength points when more than 1 hex range. Which totally contradicts the actual chart itself. So
I'm actually trying to think what they were saying. Were they saying...
I don't think I'm being... like missing something, being an idiot.
Are they trying to say that our infantry and dismounted cavalry get that negative when firing at cannon from more than 1 hex?
Artillery fires at infantry dismounted cavalry at half SP.
Yeah.
When more than 1 hex range.
It'd be nice to get a little clarity on that one. Because we just ignored it and played it
it's either
via the chart.
1 or half.
Yeah.
Which is a big difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference. But,
Yeah.
But other than that, everything else, super clear in the rulebook, very easy to learn, and the game provides you with something that moves along decently, but is some fun history.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to emphasize. It's fun to play with.
Yep.
It's very simple, so it's just moving guys around, shooting guys.
The other thing that I also really liked, and you mentioned this when you were looking at the board, the leaders are very important.
Yes.
And you've only got a couple. I think I had 2 leaders. Maybe I had a third. I had 3. So I had 3 leaders, and I think you had...
I had 2.
2.
I ended up with Hill.
And units that were further away from their brigade commander, which is the guy that's their color, they're out of command and they can't do a whole lot.
Yes.
They can offensively and defensively fire if they're adjacent to somebody, so if they're locked in combat. But if you're out of command range and you're 2-3 hexes away, you can't do anything. You've got to...
Your leader's got to come and get you.
So I liked that, and some of the rules regarding leader casualty and death.
Just fun.
It didn't come up a lot, but I could see, man, had that went a different way, we didn't lose a leader at all.
No.
That would have changed the game quite a bit. So I was pretty cavalier with my leaders. I should have probably had them 1 step back, but the advantage to having them right up front on top of your stack is that -1 modifier for your morale rolls.
Yes.
That's huge. That cannot be understated.
Yes.
So that was another very well done element. The colors are very clear. The only thing that's not clear sometimes is we had similar colors on our bands at the top.
Yes.
So there were times you were like, I'm going to take it to Colquitt. Colquitt's your dude.
Yes.
Yeah. But he looks like my guys.
Yeah, and
that's a minor thing, but
very minor. But that's just because that's how I play these style games when it's formations and they have like a colored banner at the top. That's pretty much the only thing that I look at for unit identification. Yep. And so I had to train myself to be like, no.
Yep.
Your brown guy is your brown. It's not mine. It's the same color, but the rest of the counter is not.
And the background color's different.
Very different.
You're gray and kind of a, taupe, whereas I'm blue and light blue. So that's a total... But that was an interesting element. I thought the leaders were well done. I liked the brigades. I thought it was good.
There's a really nice amount of rules without it being complex.
Yeah.
Leaders, formations, command, morale, strength point, attack, CRT. To squeeze that into 8 pages is very impressive.
It's very impressive.
And for it to be fun and to give you some actually good tactical choices is really, really good. So basically, I had a good time with this.
I did too.
Especially considering it's ACW, which isn't
a big deal for you.
It's not a big draw. I don't see an ACW, I'm like, I gotta play that.
Yeah.
So
I like it more than you do.
Yeah.
We haven't played a lot.
But I enjoy them.
Yeah. They're very interesting.
But
we've played...
Playing them when they're fun and playable, I'm like, oh, this is great.
What else have we played that's ACW? I can't remember now.
We played Battle Hymn.
Right, which was really good.
Mark Herman's Gettysburg.
Yep. I played U.S. Civil War.
Yeah, and then you played Sharpsburg.
Yep.
I'm
so
sure
we played a little bit. Maybe we need to play a little bit more. And
probably.
Do kind of a top list, but...
It's not as if we don't have others.
Oh, you're right. But I overall, I would want to play this game again, immediately, but do the full campaign.
Yeah, I want to play the full 6 hours, start to finish.
We're going to have to do that sometime.
Yeah.
Because I think it was pretty good. Very enjoyable.
Yes. So, appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been Antietam.
Yes. Antietam.
Oh,
It's Antietam.
Okay.
Antietam 1862, I think, is the official title.
Yes. And this is from Worthington. This is available. Go get it. It's on their website for something you're interested in.
One other comment. They're doing good games.
Yes.
They're not overly complex, but they're just interesting. Freeman's Farm we've played recently.
Yeah.
1759. We're going to play Custer's Last Stand tonight.
And I've played the Robin Hood block war game.
Yeah.
That's fun.
We
played
did Dunkirk.
Base.
Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Just good, solid games.
And they dumped a whole bunch at the end of the year as well.
And they've got a whole bunch coming out.
I know.
It's interesting.
There's some stuff to look for in Worthington because, to me, I love their production value. They have mounted boards. The counters are usually
good counters.
thick.
They're pre-clipped.
And very clear as well.
Yeah. Nice
Rules
game.
are typically good.
Yeah.
And the smaller games, things like Siege of Quebec or Freeman's Farm, have solo modules in them. So you can play them on your own if you want to on some of those shorter ones. But then you get, it's not like the meatiest game, but it's meaty Hex and Counter War game. 8 pages of rules, but
there's some meat here.
There's some thinking to do.
There's some depth.
So, this is a really fun one. I had a good time with it.
I agree.
So, once again, thanks for watching. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.